Welcome to Here to Uplift. This is where we uplift our community by sharing the real stories and wisdom of entrepreneurs, changemakers, and innovators. No fluff, just the good, bad, and ugly of their journeys. It's a new season, and we are breaking bread in a segment I call Let's Talk About It, highlighting the food and culture of Silicon Valley. So you might get a little hungry. Your support means everything. So if you enjoy this episode, learn something new, or feel inspired, please share it with a friend or that entrepreneur who needs a boost. Now, let's get into it. Okay, we are at Super Taco in Fremont. You chose this place.
Yes.
So is this a place you come often?
It's been here since I was a kid. I grew up in Fremont, but I've only started coming here very recently, actually.
Okay.
And that's only because I moved to this neighborhood and I started running frequently at the park nearby and decided to finally pop in. And yeah, ever since, I've been coming back because the salsa here is pretty addicting.
Okay, all salsa?
I like their orange salsa and their green salsa. They used to give it to you in little ramekins, but now they give it to you in bottles because I think it's been high demand.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I never even heard about orange salsa until I came to the Bay Area. And I was just telling somebody about that. I'm like, people always talk about, the orange sauce. And I'm like, what is that? It took me so long to figure it out.
Yeah.
Ooh, more food.
Oh, I hate to make you be a server, but could you ask for the orange salsa too? Thank you.
I see it up there.
Oh, there it is.
It's loaded.
Yeah, I don't know. The first time I had orange salsa was La Vic's in San Jose and Iguanas in San Jose.
So we were at Iguanas recently. I haven't been to La Vic's yet.
Okay, you need to go. I think their orange salsa is probably the staple.
Okay.
Don't get mad at me for this, for anyone watching. I don't think their meat's the best quality.
Okay.
But their quesadillas are unique because they fry their tortillas.
Ooh.
So it makes it a little crunchy, a little bit of texture. You can also ask for their super burritos to be crispy, and I do that often.
That's good to know.
That's it.
Whatever. One's chicken, one's carnitas. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm going to wait till you get your food, too, before I start going ham on these.
No, please dive in.
What did you order again?
I got a super burrito, carne asada. Yeah.
Classic.
Kept it simple.
I love, particularly when we're talking about restaurants, I love that you noted that it's been here forever. When you find a spot that's just existed for so long, that's such a good sign, especially in the Bay Area, because I feel like even just walking around downtown San Jose, all those shops that people told me about that used to be down there just really got killed during COVID.
Right.
It's so sad to see the places that have been around forever and didn't last.
Yeah.
But
that's
when a community rallies around a place too, that's special.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard that on average in the restaurant industry, there's a 5-year turnover rate, and if you survive that 5-year period, then you're an establishment, you're an institution. But getting there is probably the hard part. And I don't know, for the first 2 to 3 years, you're not even breaking even yet, so you're kind of chasing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been here since I was a kid, so they're definitely doing well, I think.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a perfect segue to actually kind of do some intros. So while we're waiting for the rest of the food to come, I was really excited to have you on because obviously I met you through Anthony and through those connections, but then I started picking out these little things about you that I'm like, oh my gosh, Jir is fascinating. Which maybe a side note, but I'm like, I also would love to know how your nickname Jir came to me. But I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into the conversation more.
Yeah. Geez, where do I start? Well, I'm Jeremy Keokham, or Jer for short. It's really just a nickname, it's short for Jeremy. And I got it because there was a period in my life where there were 2 Jeremys in my, ecosystem, my social sphere, and one of us had to be differentiated. So I went by Jer. And it really came about because, I guess people call Jeremy's Jer Bears, so it was kind of hold off of that.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, so for a while, I would identify as Jer just because it was easier.
So it's not even Jer, it's Jer.
Yeah. It's the first half of Jeremy, I guess, or the first third. Jeremy is actually 3 syllables. Most people say it as 2 syllables, but it's Jeremy instead of Jeremy, which is what most people say. Wait, Jeremy. Yeah, that's 3 syllables. Had to double check.
Hold on a second. Okay, cool. And then what do you do?
I am currently a creative project manager. Thank you. In tech. So I work in a tech space, but I don't have a tech job, if that makes sense.
That is exactly I guess part of why I'm doing this series. I want to feature the places in Silicon Valley, but I also kind of want to bust the myth that everybody in Silicon Valley works in tech. Yeah. And if you do work in tech, it's not always software, as a lot of folks will think about.
Right. We're not all engineers here. My partner works in tech. She's at an autonomous vehicle company, and she's also not in a tech role. She's in human resources, but it's kind of funny because we both are in a tech field or tech industry with adjacent jobs, if you will.
Okay, so what does a creative product manager do? What does that look like on your day-to-day?
I think you can ask any one of my teammates this question and they'll give you a different answer. My main purpose, I guess, is to enable them to do their job well. So my goal in my day-to-day is to ensure that all the organization, logistics, administrative stuff, resourcing, planning is taken care of. So our designers and creatives can focus on their craft, focus on what they do best, right? Yeah. Sometimes there's overlaps where I dabble into the design and creative work. So it's helpful that I come from that type of background, but it's not necessarily a prereq, if you will. And vice versa. Sometimes my designers or creatives will also dabble in project management. So there's a lot of a lot of sharing, if you will, of resources and skills. But yeah, that's kind of what my job is in a nutshell.
Is it specific to a marketing team, or could it be anywhere within the department?
Yeah, at my organization, we fall under the marketing department, but there are other structures where the design or creative teams reports to its own chain of command or its own hierarchy. There's some organizations where it falls under a product team or under a engineering or UX team or what have you. We report to marketing at my organization, but we do service the entire company. So if HR needs some design help, we also provide our services there. So we think about everyone in our organization as internal clients and us as an internal agency, if you will.
Yeah. Okay. I like this. And you say you grew up in Fremont?
I grew up in Fremont. I was born in Oakland and lived there for 5 years before moving here. So I moved here right when I started elementary school. Okay. And then up until the age of 13, I was going back and forth between Oakland and Fremont. I would go to school here, but my grandma lived in Oakland, my late grandma, and she would babysit me when my parents had to work. My church was in Oakland, so I would go to church out there. And I stopped going to church when I was 13. So as soon as I became a teenager, my visits became less frequent. But I consider Fremont and Oakland to be my hometown.
That's awesome. Yeah. When I got here, and give you a chance to eat too, when I first moved to San Jose, I was meeting a lot of Anthony's community and his network, obviously, because I didn't know a lot of folks here. And I asked him, I said, okay, I really am used to kind of finding pockets of the Black community, specifically wherever I go, and getting involved, whatever that looks like. So I said, so where are the Black people here? And he just sat really contemplating, he was thinking so hard. He was like, oh, that's easy to answer. And I was like, okay. He's like, Oakland.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, in San Jose. He's like, yeah, Oakland.
That's funny.
I was like, wait a second, what do you mean? He's like, well, when I think about it, all the Black people I knew, it's not like there was a community of Black people or a prime area kind of within San Jose, there's pockets that's oh, this is heavily Vietnamese and everybody kind of groups up a little bit naturally in some sense. In any community, I feel like that happens, but that's not really the case as far as I've seen so far for Black people in San Jose. So he's like, Oakland, go to Oakland. I'm like, oh my God, why do I have to travel to Oakland to find Black people? But it kind of has been true.
It's kind of far from San Jose too. It's an hour-ish. But yeah, Oakland.
Which now I've loved every time I've gone to Oakland, but it's that is really interesting to me. All the Black people I've met, it's definitely not communal. It's pockets here and there. But maybe I just haven't found it yet. Y'all can tell me if I'm missing something.
No, I think that's pretty accurate. You can go a little up north past Fremont and you'll find predominant Black communities in Hayward, San Leandro. But yeah, you have to inch towards Oakland to kind of get those types of, diversity or whatever. there's a lot of like Asians in Fremont, primarily like Chinese and South Asians, Indians.
Yeah.
It wasn't always like that. Growing up, it was much more diverse.
Interesting.
So we had like pockets of Black communities here, Mexican communities here. In fact, when I was in high school, Asians were kind of like the minorities. I think it's different now. I don't know what the demographics are now, but just like looking at my neighbors and stuff, I'm pretty sure it's no longer the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, so seeing that transition was pretty interesting.
Good. That's good. That absolutely makes sense. It was interesting to me when we visited you and Wendy and like saw your beautiful condo and everything to see how the community was designed around a playground and so communal. But I definitely agree with you that just the more time I spend in Fremont, which is usually for dance class or like visiting you pretty much, I would agree that I definitely see a lot more pockets, particularly of Filipino culture.
Yeah.
I can't even necessarily say Asian because I don't know if I've been around enough to see some of the other cultures and communities, but that has been fascinating because we were living in Cupertino when I first came, and that was like similar, but it was, we realized how to like describe it. When we were living in Cupertino, we were surrounded by folks who were not American.
Yes.
That was the best way I can describe it because I was like, oh, it's like, it's diverse, but it's not diverse at the same time. Like everybody kind of stays together. It was really hard for me to like just build a community with folks. Like nobody was mean or rude, but a lot of folks, weren't English speaking or just had very different values and cultural priorities than we did raising Angel there. So,
right.
Yeah.
I think Fremont's kind of the same. I mean, based on my observations, I feel like my neighbors kind of keep to themselves. Most of our South Asian Indian neighbors, they socialize with each other, but there's not a lot of like integration or mixing. And I think that has to do with them being like newer to the States, right?
It's like, I don't blame it at all.
Yeah.
You got to find your community.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely hard for us to connect with folks in that space.
I think on the bright side of things, though, like it doesn't come from a place of hate. It's not like they're keeping themselves because it's like, oh, I don't want to mess with these people or what have you, or vice versa. It's just that's the way it is right now. But I think
so
organically,
much to America.
Sure, my parents went through the same thing. I think when they first moved here, they picked Oakland because there was a large Asian community there. There's a lot of Chinese people, Southeast Asians, and that's what my parents are. So it was kind of like a soft landing, if you will, right?
Yeah.
You move to a different country, but you pick a place that has something that you're familiar with, right? The food, the language, the sounds, the smells. So I think that's kind of what Fremont is for a lot of South Asians right now. And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it gives us access to amazing food. I know we're eating Mexican food right now, but Fremont has amazing Indian food.
Ooh, okay.
And amazing Afghan food as well. So that's some of our best
I don't know if I've ever had Afghan food. I need to try that.
Yeah. Maybe outside of this segment, we can go to this spot some other time. It's called Da Afghan. It's like right down the street.
Okay.
And it's also been there since like I was a kid, but people from all over the Bay Area will come out just for that restaurant.
Put me onto all the food places. I will be eating for days. Okay, quick food pause / eating / talking. I will say I'm really a fan of these nachos. I haven't even taken a bite of my actual taco yet for the Let's Talk About It series, so that's kind of sad.
You have to try the salsa.
I did. I put on a couple chips. I like it. But I need to try it alone so I can actually taste it.
I think the Greek one's good too.
Let's take like 5-10 minutes and just eat. Yeah. Because I'm like, I feel like I'm grilling you, and then you're like, I can't even eat right now. I'm trying to identify what the flavor is in the orange salsa that I'm tasting.
I think is it habanero? But it's not as spicy as habanero, so.
I feel like I taste the fruit in it that I can't point to. Like, what is it? Maybe it's like a mango habanero or something.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I just haven't had enough sugar because these drinks are like hitting. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Did you have an open house this weekend?
Do I?
This past weekend did you post something about an open house or?
This past weekend I did not. We ended up having a huge family party, but I was doing some buyer tours for somebody looking in Palo Alto right now.
Nice.
Yeah. It was like a wild day. Probably a much longer story to tell you that one. But yeah, I saw this huge estate in Los Gatos that the person currently lives at, and I was just like blown away. So gorgeous. But yeah, I actually want to scope out more of like the condo options in Fremont.
Oh yeah.
That's really what I've been like focusing on and specializing is condos and townhomes. Like I want to know all the condos and townhomes that are available and exist in the South Bay.
Yeah.
Besides your complex and obviously everything that's being built around it, I don't know Fremont too well yet, so I really want to explore Fremont more.
There's a lot of single-family homes. Like if you just drive around, most of them are single-family homes, and I don't think they're building any new single-family homes. Most of them are like these 2-3-story townhomes or condos. One of our neighbors just sold their place, like the building right over. I think it was listed for like 1.2. I don't know what it sold for, or I think it's pending right now, but. Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see like the movement of people coming in, coming out, and all the development.
Enjoy your place?
Yeah. I enjoy the place in and of itself, but Fremont's not where I want to like be for the rest of my life.
I was gonna ask that too.
We came back because it just made sense. We were moving every other year, just because we were renting, and whenever the lease came up, they spiked up our rent quite dramatically, and we're like, well, does it make sense for us to keep doing this? Let's build some equity. And we picked Fremont because it's where my parents live, it's where my son lives, and Wendy's parents are nearby in Dublin, so it just made sense.
It's a good middle ground.
Plus, our property is by all the freeways, so it's just easy to get around. So for right now, it's nice, it's convenient.
Yeah. Do you technically work in San Jose or?
I work at home, so I can.
I was like, because I know I see you traveling a ton, so I wasn't sure if you had like a base location.
I work at home. Wendy works. She's hybrid, so sometimes she'll go in office, sometimes she'll work from home.
Do you enjoy remote work?
It has its perks. There's pros and cons to everything, right? It's a privilege, and I will never take it for granted, because I know a lot of people want to work from home. I save 2 to 3 hours every day from not having to commute. I save on gas. But arguably, I think I work longer than most people that go in the office.
It's hard to turn off when you're home.
Yeah, I'm in back-to-back meetings. There's no transition period. You end 1 hour meeting, like your meetings are typically 30 to 45.
There's no expectation of, I gotta go to the next room.
No, it's just you click one button and then you join the next room, and then it's like, okay, so context switching is crazy. It's mentally draining, but again, like the trade-off, I think it's worth it.
Okay. It's always interesting to me because I really appreciated working remotely during COVID, actually. But I was in Merced at the time. And here, like, obviously with real estate, you have to be moving and seeing things. But even just for the administrative work, I prefer, even though we have a beautiful, like, home office setup, like, I prefer to go to the office to, like, be in a different space or go to a coffee shop or something. So I like the flexibility that I can do it from anywhere, but I just don't love working from home. Obviously, I appreciate that I can with the little baby right now, but
there are some days where it feels like, you have cabin fever or whatever. So the flexibility of like, actually working from home, you're right, can be very isolating, but I think working from anywhere as a concept is probably the most ideal situation, right?
I like the concept of remote work. I don't necessarily like work from home. Yeah.
Especially if you can travel around the world or, work in wherever you want.
Also, I've seen a lot of your travels lately, but I know you went to New York recently, right? So when I see these travels that you're posting, are they for work or pleasure or both?
Both. New York. Could I borrow a napkin, actually?
Please.
I think I have salsa in my...
would probably have cheese everywhere right now.
So my most recent trip to New York was for work and pleasure. We went there for a conference, and I just extended my stay. Wendy and I got into a half marathon, the Brooklyn Half. We won a lottery. I mean, we still had to pay, but it was such a high demand race that you have to like apply for a raffle or a lottery.
Oh my gosh. Are these the kind where you have to have a certain time to even get in?
No, not this one.
Okay.
At least I don't think so. I think you just have
I'm
to.
still learning about the whole running culture still.
Yeah, they prioritize local residents of New York.
Ooh.
And for anyone else, you either have to get lucky, like we did, or you have to like do this program that the New York marathon organizers like have. I don't know exactly what it's called, but they can look it up. But we got in, so we extended my trip. And after that half marathon weekend, Wendy went home and I stayed and just like lived with some friends and couch surfed and worked out there for a week. So that was really nice.
Yay. So I was super excited, like since we're bringing running up now, I was super excited when you invited me to lead the stretch for the Fremont Run Club. So that's definitely one of the topics I wanted to hit on today, because you have brought so many people together through this group. And when I went, I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to run or not, because I'm barely getting back into running. So I wasn't even expecting to run, but I had like the best time in months. And then to see my whole family enjoy it, like Angel was running. He had so much fun with it. Anthony wasn't running, he was with the baby, but just meet and greeting like everybody that was there and seeing the camaraderie and the support within the community, no matter like what speed you were at. The kindness really blew me away, truly. But I know it takes intention to create a culture like that. So I would love to know, like, I guess your running journey and then how it led you to starting this run club.
Yeah. I mean, first off, like, thank you for doing that and for being a part of that event, because you added so much to that experience for everyone else. And also shout out to the other organizers, because it's not just me, right?
Yeah,
it takes a village.
Group, absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, like my running journey, I don't even know where to begin. Like, it was kind of like a post-COVID thing, but it wasn't like the first thing I did after COVID.
Did you grow up running?
I did not grow up running. I have no running background. I hated running like most people. Never did track, never did cross country. In fact, in junior high, that was like the last time I ran before I got into running. Every time we ran a mile, I would either ditch school or I would like hang out behind the bleachers, smoke cigarettes, eat hot Cheetos, whatever. So that was the life I was living before I got into health and fitness.
You're like a whole nother life.
COVID-19 was the great awakening, because not only was I doubling down on my unhealthy habits, but we were stagnant, right? Because we were all just sitting at home, not doing anything, no movement, just, I mean, it just was really bad. So coming out of that, I wanted to obviously bounce back and recuperate. And the first thing I got into was cycling. I had some colleagues at the time.
Stationary cycling or actually?
Like road biking.
Roads,
Yeah. So that was my first exercise before I really got back into any type of fitness or wellness routine or whatever. Cycling was great. That got me to slowly to start, quit cigarettes and quit vaping, just because I was addicted to wanted to improve my cycling abilities, and I wanted to keep it with my other friends. But I was still like technically overweight, according to the BMR and stuff.
Interesting.
So I got back into weightlifting, and I was doing that and cycling. But with weightlifting, you're not really cutting weight per se. You're just kind of, I mean, depending on how you do it. But what I was doing, I was just putting on muscle mass at the time.
So it wasn't meeting the goals.
Yeah, it wasn't meeting my goals. And then at the company I was at, we decided to sign up for a Spartan race as a group.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was like this health initiative that we started to get all of our colleagues in healthier shape, I guess, just because we were all dealing with the same thing with COVID and all. So that got me to start running. Running is a part of the Spartan race. And I was like, well, I need to train for this. So it started off with 1 mile, honestly, and I couldn't even run the 1 mile at the time. So it was that bad, but through consistency and perseverance, that gradually grew into like a habitual thing.
I would have guessed that you were always like a fitness person.
I wish.
I guess when I met you, you were already running miles. So I'm like, oh, dang.
Yeah. So I hated it,
Here we
and
can
I
all
loved
start
it.
from anywhere.
Exactly. And I tell that to people all the time, like my friends that hit me up that want to get into running. I kind of share that story in hopes that, it gets them off the couch and on their feet. That's sort of phase one, but I fell off of running, and then I basically relapsed and bounced back and started doing unhealthy things again. And it took like maybe a year. Actually, it was leading up to moving to Fremont. I was in Milpitas at the time, and I was still semi-active. Like I would go to the gym once a day. I would box once a day and run occasionally, but I started eating like very, very, very poorly. And at that moment too, I just had a lot of stressors in life. So coupled with a lack of sleep, poor eating habits, and just a stressful living situation with things out of my control, obviously I just kind of stopped taking care of myself. But when we moved here and we got settled in, things started turning around, and that's when I got back into running, and I started doing 75 hard. And that's sort of that's
you
a
did
thing.
that
Yeah,
too.
I didn't finish it. But
Interesting. I keep debating.
yeah, that's a thing that got me to where I'm at now. So it was a 75 hard that basically gave me the foundation. Like it gave me my my aerobic endurance fitness or base to be able to run the way I do now.
Okay, so running was part of the workouts that you chose to do as part of it.
That was my outdoor workout.
Okay.
So for 1 hour or 45 minutes a day, I would run that for that duration. I wasn't running for distance or speed.
Just the time.
I would just run for duration. And
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's what got me the base, and I just built off of that. And although I didn't finish it because it was something stupid. I forgot to take a picture or something, which is one of the items.
Yep.
But I was like pretty strict on myself. I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do the whole thing. So although I didn't complete 75 hard, I kept running at minimum 4 miles a day or 45 minutes a day for 111 days. I actually stopped when I was traveling overseas in Europe. I ran in Prague, Stockholm, Sweden, and then I ended up getting COVID overseas, and that stopped my streak.
Yeah, that'll throw a wrench in it.
Yeah.
That sounds like it. Wow. Okay. Definitely not a linear journey like I thought you were going to tell me. Which makes me even happier because there's hope.
It's never linear. Unless you're like a prodigy kid athlete and your parents groomed you from like birth, like I don't think progression is ever linear for people.
No, that's true. And for the 75 hard, I've been debating it because I love challenges like that in general. But kind of like you said, I know I'm strict with myself. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And the reason is terrible because the only thing that's holding me back from trying 75 hard is the fact that when I was pregnant, we went to so many wineries for wine tasting that I could not participate in. That now that I have the baby, I want to do wine tastings.
Right.
But the funny thing is I don't even drink that much, and I don't enjoy drinking that much. So since having the baby, who is almost 11 months old now, I have done a total of 1 wine tasting.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, my reason is stupid. The reason I'm not doing 75 hard is so I can go enjoy wine tasting.
Yeah.
Since I felt like I was missing out on them, and then I'm not even doing that anyway.
Yeah.
So
Well, you
maybe I
could
should just go
incentivize
for it.
yourself. If you do 75 hard, you can reward yourself to an extravagant wine tasting experience at the end of it.
That is true.
Yeah.
And now summer's almost over, and I feel like spring and summer is the best time for the pretty wine tastings.
Yeah,
anyway. When
true.
I'm thinking of all the scenery and everything.
Yeah.
In reality, I think it's just that I
Yeah.
actually want. I just want the experience and the scenery.
Yeah.
It's not about the wine.
Right. You just want to be in Napa somewhere at a vineyard and take nice photos.
Exactly.
And,
So maybe that's I do 75 hard. I got plenty of time next year to do some wine tastings.
Yeah. It's funny because Anthony actually introduced me to 75 hard. Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah. When we were working together at my old job, we were hustle bros, the cliche meme, let's grind until we were overdoing it, obviously. And I think both him and I are in the same in many ways. We still kind of overdo it at times. But 75 Hard came up because he found it through a podcast and he introduced it to me. At the time, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I didn't want to do it with him at the time. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have known about 75 Hard.
Did he do it that you know of? Because when I brought it up, he was like, eh.
I think he started it, but also didn't finish.
Yeah, that sounds right. Dang, 111 days is a lot, though.
Yeah.
Still a lot. It's like you say the number of days, and I guess with the baby, it's definitely taught me something about time. And I don't know if you felt this with your son at all. It's like time can feel so slow in the moment, but it goes by so fast at the same time.
Yeah.
My gosh.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
I'm actually starting another round of 75 Hard on September 1st. And there was like this accountability group that we created if you want to join.
Look me in.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I have no other reason not to. Let's do it.
I heard you were doing the Honolulu 10K.
Yeah.
So the 75 Hard could be leading up to that.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It's like actually since running the Bridge in the Bay weekend,
Mm-hmm.
I have only ran like a couple times maybe.
Yeah.
And it's really just because of my knee, which I don't remember if I told you that I've had like multiple knee surgeries and stuff. So I've had ACL reconstruction.
Oh, ouch.
Which is what got me into yoga.
Yeah.
But it's also what pushed me away from running is like the fear of re-tearing it. Because every time I start running again, because I truly enjoy it, I'm one of those people that's like the opposite. I love running. But I always start feeling like issues with my knee again.
Okay.
And I'm so scared of tearing it again. I don't want to be in that fear space, but I need to make sure I have a good training and recovery plan around running. And that's what I think I need to secure. So maybe September 1st is that good start date, because that's next week, right?
Yeah, this Sunday.
Okay.
I think.
So I pretty much got the rest of this week to figure out
So
what the strength training side looks like.
Do you get knee pain, like no matter how you run, like whether you run fast or slow or hard or like an easy effort?
I don't know, truly. I haven't quite analyzed or studied it. I just got actual running shoes.
Okay.
And this is probably the first time I've actually done that. I've always just used like whatever tennis shoes, whatever sneakers. So I'm excited about that, and I think that'll help. But I do know that just in analyzing my body, like I definitely have like glute and hamstring weakness compared to the past when I was doing a lot more strength work. So I know I need to get that strength training in. So it's just like scheduling it, putting the time in. I think, like you said, an accountability group is what I really would enjoy having right now. So that's a good one. I don't know if you heard that, but 75 Hard starting September 1st. I just said yes.
Want to do it with us?
Which means no wine tasting.
I was just telling her that you introduced me to 75 Hard in the first place.
I'm going to introduce you to a lot of bad things.
Yeah. Man. Okay, well, let's jump a little bit. How and when did you start the Fremont Run Club? Because that was more recent, right?
Yeah, semi-recent. So we started it in 2023. And I would say this was before like the Run Club boom. I mean, there's always been this.
It was a huge boom. Right
yeah,
now.
I think there's almost like a new Run Club every other day, from what I'm observing or noticing. But there's always been a strong foundation of Run Clubs for community building, especially for disenfranchised or marginalized communities.
Okay.
And that's sort of why we started Fremont Run Club. The co-founder and I. We were honestly just running together. We just hit each other up, or he hit me up because he noticed through social media that I was into running. And for the most part, up until this point, I was a solo runner. I never ran with a group. Outside of like races that I was signed up for, I would never run with any other people. But when we started running together, we were just kind of joking, and we said, "Hey, what if we start a run club?" And we were just like, "Yeah, we'll start a Fremont Run Club." Ironically, too, because growing up in Fremont, like, you just kind of hate on the fact that you grew up in Fremont. It's like one of those cities, you know, you're like, why would I want to be here? As a kid, anyways. Now, like, there's things about it that I appreciate. But point aside, it was just us two. And then we recruited like our close friends.
Okay.
Wendy started running with us. Our good friend Andrew and his wife started running with us. And then some of our other close friends, Connor's best friend Mal, started running with us. So for the longest time, it was just us.
Yeah.
And we were never like a public run club. Until this day, we're still not. We identify and operate as a private referral-based run club.
Okay.
Because we want to keep the experience like somewhat intimate. All these viral run clubs, they're great. You do get a lot of opportunity to meet people, but I found that in my experience, it can be either relatively shallow because the interactions are so quick because there's so many people and it's overwhelming, or in my like other experiences that I've had, you go with a group and you only socialize with your group, right? So what we want to do is we want to disrupt that and we want to keep it small to a point where you can still have meaningful connections with new faces, new names, new runners. But yeah, so 2023, fast forward to present day, we started doing more collaborations with other local run clubs. And our whole thing is we wanted to fill a void in smaller suburban cities where these things weren't happening. There are no running events here. There are no running like social clubs here. We always had to commute like an hour out to find like really fun events centered around running and community building. So we identified the void and we're doing the best we can to fill it. And then there's all these other local clubs that are kind of doing the same thing. So we're like, hey, why? I mean, we all kind of like acknowledge each other's presence, and I know we all see each other. And I thought to myself, like, why are we just kind of staying in our own silos? Why don't we break that barrier and put our resources together, put our passion together, and just kind of do something for the greater community at large? And that's what you experienced with Bridge in a Bay. Prior to that, there was Eat My Dust, that was the first
I'm so sad I
big
missed
collab
that one. It
we
looks
did.
so fun.
There's going to be more, so this is just the beginning. This is just a start. But that's sort of the genesis of Fremont Run Club and a glimpse of where we're headed towards, I guess. Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what comes of it. Okay, well, we're kind of at the point where we start wrapping it up, and I like kind of giving the big impact questions right at the end.
Oh, okay.
So I know you have a son, but also this could be just in relation to anybody that you meet or impact. What do you want your legacy to be?
What do I want my legacy to be? I don't know. I don't know if it's like the curse of modesty or humility, but growing up Asian, you just don't want to be boastful. I guess that's just part of our values in Asian American households. So I don't really think too much about leaving a legacy as in my name or like what have you, because I also grew up Christian and we were taught to not like, falsely idolize people or whatever. So I tend to shy away from putting myself on a pedestal, and that includes the idea of a legacy.
Does that include how you'd want to be remembered?
I mean,
there's asked it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be remembered for who I am and not what I do, if that makes sense. Although what I do is important, I definitely want to leave a positive impact to anybody I interact with, right? I want to be remembered as someone that operates with integrity and doesn't jeopardize his values for money or for fame or for whatever. I don't know. I'm a simple person, and I think at the end of the day, as long as my son, my family are doing well and they have something they can kind of work off of, then that would make me happy. Yeah.
I like that. That was so reflective too, which I think tells me and whoever's listening a lot about you.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean,
I feel like I've always known you to be more of a reflective person in the time that I have known you. It seems like everything you do is intentional.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you saying that, because I'm a retired artist, or I identify as like an artist in perpetual hiatus. But to me, what art is intentional, like living, right? So even though I'm not making art, there is intention in the way I move and the things that I do. And I mean, something as simple as a run club has a lot of intention behind it.
Yes.
But yeah, I appreciate you saying that because there definitely is intention.
Okay. The next one is actually a promise I made to the first guest I had for this series. He asked me to ask every guest on this series how you define wealth.
I think, this is going to be such a Hallmark cliche. There used to be a version of me that defined wealth in the most practical sense, and that's like monetary value or net worth. And don't get me wrong, it's important. Having capital is important. You need to develop generational wealth. I think all of that is essential to economic freedom or social mobility. So all that aside, I think for me, wealth is ultimately defined by love, and that's what I mean by it's such a Hallmark cliche. Like I think love can also be seen as a form of capital, because if you don't have it, then like something as simple as hitting a friend up to hang out, like if they don't love you, they're not gonna carve out time out of their day to do that, or if you're down and bad and you need a favor, like love is the currency that gets someone to really come out of their way to take care of you, or vice versa. If you love someone else and you go out of your way to do that for them.
Think about it, yeah.
So to me, it's love. Anthony and I actually talked about this concept called the friendship economy, right? And it's a book that we want to write someday. But that's centered around this idea that wealth is love and love is wealth.
Oh my gosh. That needs to be on a shirt. I'm like, that's going to be...
Or at least a bumper sticker.
I don't disagree, but I definitely have not thought of it that way before. So I appreciate that perspective a lot. Okay, so my last question is the advice piece. If there's someone similar to young Jir out there watching or listening to this podcast, what piece of advice would you give him?
Geez. That's a tough one.
We'll say 18-year-old Jir. We'll be specific.
I don't know. There's so many different angles that I can sort of approach this from. I'm a walking conundrum, I think. I'm a contradiction. I mean, like, I'm tatted up. My fingers are tatted, but I'm also an academic, or a retired academic, retired artist working in the corporate world. Like, I'm not supposed to be where I'm at, So I think if I have any advice to people out there is that if you feel stuck, if you feel like the world is against you, if you feel like you were born into a losing hand, push through that, and just continue striving and just have faith in the process. I don't know if people are religious that are watching this, but it's the same concept as let go, let God, or just trust in the universe, or just having a positive outlook on life. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control the way you react to things. And I think there's a lot of power in seeing losses as lessons. There's a lot of power in celebrating small wins, and you have to do all of the above in order to kind of push through. But if you're struggling, if you weren't born into a winning hand, if you don't have generational wealth that you inherit, it's going to take more work. But if you really want it, it's up for the grabs. You just have to go out there and take it, type of thing. I hope that resonates, but it's not easy.
So it's going to hit somebody I know, because anytime it's been from our own experience, it usually is for someone else too once we share it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you guys are giving me a lot of nuggets right at the end to think about now. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to go journal. But I appreciate it too.
Yeah,
I really
I appreciate this too.
I appreciate you sharing this spot in Fremont. Thank you so much to Super Taco for hosting us. Delicious, and honestly, I think this is my favorite part. The horchata and I think this was watermelon lime.
Yeah.
Agua Fresco was so good. So good. But more than anything, the conversation is everything and so important. And I hope that somebody out there watching or listening is able to feel that impact and be inspired to keep up on their journey.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate
Thank
that.
you so much.
Awesome.
That's a wrap.
Yay.